is our district counselor on special assignment. She's the one who actually does all the work to make this happen and many other events. She's also coordinating our district college and career fair on October 5th, and I believe there are flyers going around. If you don't have one of those yet, please grab one. There's a QR code for you and your student to sign up for those. Before I go too far, I want to have our translators come up and introduce themselves. So we'll start with our Armenian translator.
Բարի երեկո հարգելի հյուրեր, ծնողներ, շնորհակալություն այսօրվա մեր սեմինարին մասնակցելու համար։ Եթե կցանկանայիք այսօր հայերենով լսել այսօրվա ժողովը, խնդրում եմ մոտեցեք ինձ։ Ես սարքեր կտամ, որպեսզի լսեք։ Շնորհակալություն։
Buenas tardes a todos los presentes. Mi nombre es Verónica. Voy a proveer servicios de traducción al español. Aquellas personas que necesiten el servicio, por favor pasen a la parte de atrás para recibir el transmisor para poder escuchar la presentación de esta noche en español. Gracias.
안녕하세요. 한국어 통역사입니다. 혹시 오늘 프레젠테이션을 한국어로 듣기 원하시는 분들은 뒤쪽으로 오시면 저희가 헤드셋을 나눠드리겠습니다. 그것을 통해서 한국어로 들으실 수 있으십니다. 예, 감사합니다.
Thank you so much. So this, how many of you have been to one of our college-wise seminars? We started these last spring. This is our 6th one. I can't believe it's number 6 already. So we have one more to go after this one. And we are recording them. They're all on our district websites. So if you haven't seen the first few, please check them out. We have a wonderful opportunity to have Christopher here this evening. This is the 3rd or 4th one that he's done for us, something like that. Christopher's, I'm not supposed to say this, but my favorite presenter of the group. Christopher's amazing. So we're really glad to have you here. So thanks for joining us. And I think that's all I have to say. So I'm going to turn it over to you because you're doing the important work here.
As you can all see, this presentation, today's presentation is entirely about the UC system and the CSU system. As always, I'll be answering questions at the end. I ask specifically that you make your questions about the UC and CSU system. Frequently, parents like to use this as a way to ask whatever question they came in desiring. I'm so sorry, Greg, I pushed the wrong button. It got crushed in my finger and I don't know how to fix it. I broke it by accident while trying to fix something else. I will use this moment to vamp and say, while I appreciate being Chris's favorite presenter, I was told that I am not always the translator's favorite presenter because I have a habit of speaking at the speed of a caffeinated chipmunk. So I will be trying to slow down a little bit. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Sorry. So there's a quick survey here for you to go ahead. I will sit here for as long as it takes me to see enough phones out to see that enough of you are making an effort to scan that QR code. You can lie to me, that's okay, but I will sit here long enough to see the phones. I'm gonna break a lot more things before I leave, it's okay. All right, gonna vamp for another couple of seconds here. I'm going to give a quick introduction to who College Wise is. I'm going to go more quickly over certain slides that aren't as important, in my opinion, so that I can leave more time for Q&A. Quick introduction to College Wise. We are the nation's largest college and the nation's largest educational consulting firm. We are the official partner. We're the only firm that is an official partner of the Common App itself. We actually write the Common App's official guide every year. We also release a UC guide every year. So if you want a more comprehensive written resource than we've been getting out loud at a hopefully slowed down pace today, then just pop on the website and look for our UC guide. We're the partner for Michelle Obama's Reach Higher initiative. We provide all of the college counseling for that. I also recently wrote the curriculum for the Johns Hopkins Center for Talented Youth program, so we now provide all of the college counseling for that. We've been around for a lot of years, like 25, I'm meta degrees in math, but I'm bad at it. 25, yeah. We've been around for 25 years. We've been on the news, I've been on the news. There are a couple of white papers that you can read, some about the Supreme Court decision from June 29th of last year, some about other admissions trends. We are college consultants, we are college advisors. You have great college advising resources in your district. I know Ashley quite well. You have great resources. We are an additional, optional resource that you might want to tap. And I'll skip the sales pitch and just keep going. Okay, quick info on what I'm gonna go over today. I'm gonna give a little bit of historical context on the changes in the UC admissions process, because things are a little bit different now than they may have been 3, 4, 5 years ago when you had an older student applying. Things will definitely be different from what they were when you parents were applying. It is not uncommon for me to work with a parent who says, I went to Berkeley, and I remind them, yes, and the admissions rate was 62% when you went, so it's very different now. That's not a joke. The admissions rate to UC Berkeley in 1999 was 42%. It has dropped since then, surprise. So there's a lot of historical context, and in recent years, especially with the removal of the SAT and ACT scores, it's been a lot. Actually, is the mic high enough, or? Okay. There we go, okay. I'll go over a little bit of what the process is and what's on the application. I'll just start now and say before anyone taps out, no, it doesn't matter if you submitted on November 1st or November 15th or November 20th, they don't care. So every year the parents are like, I have to submit it on November 1st, you don't. So please don't rush your student to get it done on November 1st just for the sake of submitting it on November 1st. It doesn't change anything in the admissions process. That said, between Thanksgiving Day and November 30th, the website does typically start to encounter some trouble. So I typically say try and submit by Thanksgiving, just because the website starts to get a little crashy after that. So when you submit, it doesn't change anything, but try and submit before the website crashes. But again, it doesn't matter if it's the 1st, the 2nd, or the 23rd. I don't remember when Thanksgiving is this year. I'll go over a couple of the changes. I'll do a quick comparison between the UC system and the CSU system. You'll notice as we go through that it will be front-loaded with lots of UC information, but then I'll delineate the two in like one fell swoop. I'll share a couple resources, and then I'll leave time for questions, because I'm suspecting that the more specific question answers will be the most useful information. That's me. Yay. I don't feel the need to stay here. I'm Christopher. I write a lot of our research papers. I lead our research division. I manage our counseling staff. I graduated from Yale. I went to Seoul, so I speak Korean. There's a Korean translator here somewhere. I don't know where she went. Me, great, lovely. This is just to tell you that I know what I'm talking about. I'm gonna move on and just hope that you trust me to know what I'm talking about. Okay, great. There are a couple basic factors that go into the UC admissions process that are just really important to understand, like right off the bat. So there are, one, the application opens on August 1st. The application for the UC system is currently open for everyone. You can't actually submit it until November 1st. So you can't rush and submit it right now. And again, it doesn't matter if you submit it on the 1st or the 21st, but the application becomes submissible on November 1st. You can log in, you can start working on it now, you can start filling it out. The personal insight questions are available, and August 1st is an annual opening date, so every year you can start your UC application on August 1st. Very important note with that like rush timing, don't think you got lucky and you were able to start your application before August 1st, so if there are any juniors in the room applying next year or younger students, if you open the application early and start filling it out, you have opened it for the wrong application year, and you will make your life difficult, because once August 1st rolls around, you have to try and switch the application year for the application that you started and wasted time filling out. You're not smarter than the system. Please don't try and open your application until August 1st. Every year I have to deal with this with people. Wait until August 1st. There are 9 undergraduate locations for the UC system. They're listed there. Every once in a while there are questions about UC San Francisco. That's a medical school, so there are 9 undergraduate campuses. You're not in graduate school, I'm guessing. And then there are some programs, so the UC system is, there's one application for the UC system. You fill it out one time, and then you click a bunch of buttons to send it to additional campuses. If you're applying to UC San Diego, you then click a bunch of extra buttons to tell UC San Diego your preferences on campus. But there are some programs at specific schools that might require additional applications for that specific program at that campus. So the general UC application, one application, all 9 schools are open. Special programs like the BEEPS program at Berkeley, it's the Business and Electrical Engineering and Computer Science program. That program has an extra application. If you're applying to arts programs, some of the UCs have additional applications for the arts programs. So just keep in mind, there's one standard application for all of them, but depending on the program you select at an individual school, there may be an additional application you need to do, and those are typically done after you submit the default application. So students, this is the annual reminder, you have to check your emails so you know when those things open so you don't miss that deadline. Because you may apply to the UC system successfully and then miss applying to your program, which means that you won't be eligible for that program. Great. Oh, and yes, it's a myth that you didn't get into one UC because you got into another. UCLA and Berkeley don't communicate on which students are getting in. They don't try and game the system for who gets in where. So while I never suggest applying to all 9 campuses just for the sake of applying to all 9 campuses, please do not be part of the problem. Submitting extra applications just for the sake of doing it is annoying for everyone involved, and it costs you more money. Please don't submit the applications just to do it. Apply to the schools that you would actually go to. But keep in mind that you don't not apply to one because you think that you're gaming the system. There's no communication, there's no collusion on that front. There are 13 admissions factors that they run through. I'll go through these relatively quickly and focus on a couple. There's the UC GPA. I'm 90% sure that your transcripts, actually I'm looking at you, I'm 90% sure that your transcripts in district, actually, yeah, they show the UC GPA on your transcript if you look at it. So when you look, there are probably like 5 different GPA numbers. There's the weighted, the unweighted, the academic, the overall, the 9 through 12, the 10 through 12. The 10 through 12 GPA, the UC GPA is what they're gonna look at. You'll see 10 through 12, but remember you don't have 12, even for the seniors, you don't have 12th grade grades yet, so that's currently a 10 and 11, which is the GPA that the UC system uses. It only counts your A through G courses. All of that is in all of your school district course catalogs. I know because I've read over them several times. And then in the UC GPA, some of the campuses actually have a cap on how many AP or honors courses they'll give you GPA weighting for when they calculate your GPA. This is one of the UC system loves to say it's one system, it's one process. When it comes to admissions, there are a couple of exceptions. Their names are Berkeley, LA, and San Diego usually. You should check to see which campuses you're applying to and do they have the cap on the weighting for GPA. Generally speaking, Berkeley and LA always remove the cap for how many weighted courses they'll count when they recalculate your GPA. San Diego almost always does. They'll check your academic performance and the number of courses you took beyond the minimum requirements for your A through G. A through G are eligibility requirements. They are minimum eligibility requirements. You have probably heard your counselor say they would prefer that you take 3 years of Spanish. Your counselors, right? They would prefer that you take, whatever foreign language you're taking, it doesn't have to be Spanish, but they would prefer that you take 3 years of the foreign language. Berkeley would love it if you made it up to the AP level of your foreign language, actually. The A through G requirements are a minimum. Fun fact, the selective schools rarely accept students who only met the minimum. So if you're going for the selective schools, you have to go above and beyond, at the very least above. They will also check to see how rigorous your courses were. So there's always the question of, is it better to take easier classes and get good grades, or harder classes and get worse grades? And the answer is, try and meet in the middle. Try and take the most rigorous courses that you can actually handle so that you can have a balance. You don't need a perfect wall of straight A's. I have sent many a student to Berkeley or UCLA with a B or 2 or 3. Parents, don't freak out. I'm not telling your kids, go forth and get a B. What I'm saying is if you get a B, it's not the end of the world. It is okay. As long as you are showing that you are challenging yourself, as long as you are, like, if you are taking difficult courses, it's It's okay not to be amazing at everything. I have a student who's starting at Brown this year she got a B in both semesters of her AP Physics class, and that's okay, because physics is not her ministry. She was an English major applicant. It was fine for her not to be amazing at AP Physics. Students, you don't need to be amazing at everything. Parents, it's okay. I'm still not saying to go forth and get C's and everything. But also, do remember, you don't need perfect grades to get into the UC system. So often people focus exclusively on UCLA and Berkeley and think, so that's the requirement everywhere. The GPAs, the average GPAs for admissions in the UC system vary, and all of the UCs are a great education. California has the most robust public education system in the country. You have great options at pretty much every grade point average that is above the minimum. Do remember that the UC system has a minimum GPA requirement in the A through G. There is the difference between what's in a UC approved honors course and what's not. So you may notice that when you go to enter your courses, a class that is honors that you see as honors on your transcript doesn't actually show up as honors there. There's like a special extra system that the UC system uses for their determination of what is and what isn't an honors course. Typically, it needs to be the highest course, the highest level of that exact course that's available at your school. So a good example is frequently, honors chemistry won't be counted as an honors class at the UC system if your school also offers AP chemistry, because there was a higher level of that same course offered at your school. That's not a perfect rule, but that's generally the way it works. So like honors English 2 would almost always be counted as an honors course because there's no AP English for sophomores, because there's AP Lang and AP Lit, which are typically for seniors. But if you have an honors level and an AP level of the same exact course, typically the UC system won't count the honors for their weighting and for their honors. Eligibility in the local context, ELC. ELC is a geographic consideration. It basically means that you were in the top 6% in your school district. You'll get a letter from Glendale letting you know if you've met ELC. What ELC does is it guarantees you a spot in the UC system. It does not guarantee you a spot at the campus of your choice. What ELC means is if you were in the top X%, it's I think still 6. It's not 6, it's 9. Great, thanks Ashley. Teamwork. Top 9%, 6% is Texas, sorry. It's the top 6% law in Texas. If you're in the top 6% of your graduating class, you automatically get into UT Austin. That's not helpful to you, but sorry, that's why I had 6 in my head. If you're in the top 9% of the area, then you were guaranteed a spot in the UC system, not at the campus of your choice. The way ELC pans out is, if you apply to the UC system and you're not admitted to the campuses you apply to, after everything shakes out, after they do waitlisting, you will be offered a spot at a campus that has space. Candidly, that typically means that you were offered a spot at Merced. 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, I'm older than I thought I was, you would typically be offered a spot at UC Santa Cruz or Riverside, but in the past decade, it's almost always been a spot at UC Merced, which again, great education, I'm just making sure you know the information. ELC is not that it's not a make or break on the application. Having ELC doesn't mean that you're gonna get into your top choice. Not having it doesn't mean you won't get into your top choice. It's kind of like a very, very, very dusty gold star that they may or may not notice when they review your application. This is directly from a couple UC admissions officers because there was some drama in the Malibu School District about the way ELC was decided. And so I had to do the research on it, but they don't really focus on it that much, so don't panic and don't get too cocky. I mentioned that the UC GPA is your 10 and 11th grade GPA, because when you apply by November 30th, hopefully by Thanksgiving, they can't see your senior grades. You don't have them, but they will see your senior course list. And so they will review your senior course list to understand how are you continuing with whatever trajectory you were on. They will check your senior course list against especially if you responded to PIQ 6 about your favorite subject. Like, okay, how does this make sense in the grand scheme of that story? And what's What's the level of rigor you're pursuing? Are you actually preparing yourself for what a UC will demand of you? They'll see your senior year course list. They won't see your senior year grades until after you get in, if you get in. So, if you get in, they will ask for confirmation of your grades. So get decent ones so that you can stay in if you get in. So just keep that in mind. You've already selected your senior year courses for the seniors, but juniors, remember, they'll see that in sophomores and other younger students. And then academic opportunities in high school. Sorry, this is just a long list. They will see what other things that were available to you did you pursue. So one thing is, I mentioned that your application is read in the context of what's available to you. So they will check to see what was the level of, what were the resources available to this student, and what percentage of those resources that it made sense for the student to pursue did they pursue. So if your school offers 37 AP classes and you only took 4, that won't be considered the highest level of rigor at the school. Now, I say only 4 just to say that that's just a percentage thing. If you took 4 AP classes and you did well in 4 AP classes, you should be very proud. I'm just trying to give you an understanding of the percentages, the way they look at it. They'll also check to see if your school had CTE, did you pursue it? Did you take advantage of things like Cosmos, or did you take advantage of other educational opportunities that were either extracurricular or co-curricular? That's where things like the activity list also start to come in. They love seeing academic excellence in a specific area. Again, this is one where your performance in your own local context is really important. I always like to paint, you are not competing directly against a kid from Fresno, because that's unfair to the kid from Fresno. On top of living in Fresno, they have to compete with somebody who has the resources of an LA school. That's not the way it works. And that's why if that kid in Fresno is in first place at their school, that's understood to be the most impressive thing that it could have been in that context, because that's the best that was available there. For better or worse, you live in the general Los Angeles area, which means you have access to a lot of resources. And so you are read in that context. Now again, every family is also read in the context of the family. There's a lot of calculus that goes there. But remember, part of the reason that I mentioned, well, one, it's just because it's one of the categories for consideration. But remember, everything is about context. They're looking to understand you in your context. And so I also point out that you are not competing with the students you're not directly competing with the students at Harvard Westlake. You're not directly competing with the students at Polytechnic. Your school district still provides you with tons of resources. You could compete with many of the students at Harvard Westlake and at Polytechnic. But remember, you're not. You're considered in your very specific context. Achievements in general. Achievements and special talents, they start to look at, this is the resume. There's a very long resume on the application. You have space for 20 activities and awards. I'm gonna move a little bit more quickly. The educational preparation programs kind of lumps in with the academic opportunities. Those are the ones that are a little bit more outside of school. So earlier I mentioned Cosmos and other things like that. Those are things that are totally separate from what's at your school. So they look for, did you take advantage of what your school had, and did you look for other resources? And then, academic accomplishments in light of your life experience. This gets to that additional level of context I mentioned. They look at your geographic context, they look at the context of what you had available because of where you lived, but they also look at your specific context. If you were on the lower end of the socioeconomic spectrum in your area, they take into account that you may have had less opportunity to seize resources that may have been available to other students in your general area. If your family circumstances were more difficult, they will take that into account, provided you share the information and there's lots of room for you to do it. But everything gets considered in context. You get to share that context. There's so much space to share that context. And then improvement in academic performance. Very important to remember, none of these schools expect you to be perfect from day one. If they can see that uptick in your grades, if they can see that at some point you started to seize control and improve, the colleges will give you so much credit for that. They will give you so many brownie points for, at some point, having reached the level of maturity where you can take control and start to really want to learn and start to really do well in school, or do whatever version of well is the version for you, but that uptick in grades is something that's very important to them. And then, not to be scary, but just to be candid, a downtick does have the opposite effect. And so this is also one where I love to remind students and parents, burnout is real. So don't burn out and then not be able to keep up with the trajectory you were on, because that might be significantly worse for you than taking it at a level you can actually sustain. Because an upward tick looks amazing. Maintenance of a great level, maintenance of whatever your version of great is, it looks great, but a downtick can raise some red flags. Again, there's all the context that you might share, but keep that in mind. Number 13 is geography. I talked about this one already, but you are read in your own context. And then specifically for the CSUs, so this part doesn't apply to CSUs. Every CSU has a 5-mile radius. I think it's actually it's up to like 5.75 mile radius now, where students there's a promise in the Cal State system for students in that radius to be given preference in admissions. And so every CSU, that's part of the difference between the Cal States and the UCs. Every CSU is required to show preference to students in its little bubble of radius. That does not completely block out students from outside of that bubble, but those students, it is easier for those students to get in. So your local one is CSUN and Cal State, depending on where you live, yeah. And then generally why location matters is most of them, also out-of-state students, that's another thing. Out-of-state students there's a difference in the admissions for out-of-state students, and depending on the campus, depending on the preference. Recently, the UC's actually had an uptick in out-of-state admits, but there's been a push at the legislative push for more preference to go towards towards California applicants. This is largely in response to things like in Texas, 90% of the freshmen must be Texas State residents. At UNC Chapel Hill, 82% of, I don't know why it's 82, but 82% of the admits must be North Carolina State residents. So there's been a push for more California admits, and perhaps in response to that push, the UC system in the last 2 years has actually had an uptick in the percentage of California admits. They've not been required by law yet, but it seems kind of like they're trying to get ahead of it. So they've actually gotten a little bit better at admits from California in the last couple of years. Oh, California doesn't actually have a mandate. I have a lot of things memorized, but not that. I want to talk about the application components now for how you can do your best with them. One, selecting your campus and your major. Not every campus admits by major, but some do, and in the past, this is one of the major changes. In the past couple of years, it's become more common for the UCs to either to admit by major or for them to lock a major at admissions. What I mean by lock a major at admissions is UC San Diego is a great example. If you apply to UC San Diego as any major other than electrical engineering or computer science, you are barred from those departments. UC San Diego will only allow you to study electrical engineering or computer science if you put them on your application. And even then, it's the one you put and the one you got into. So if you start as electrical engineering, you can't go to computer science. If you start as CS, you can't go to electrical engineering. Those majors are now locked. Berkeley has quite a few of them. The Beeks major I mentioned earlier, it's the business of electrical engineering and computer science. That major, you have to apply for that major or you cannot study it. Berkeley recently launched their computer science major. If you don't apply for it, you cannot study it. And so for those, they actually do admit directly to the major. So those are more competitive, but also to counteract that question of, can I just pick something easier than transfer in? No, because they said no. And then there's even things like, it used to be common for students to try and get into the UCLA dance or arts programs and then switch it to something else. And UCLA recently put in rules where if you apply to UCLA as a dance major, for example, you are banned from changing your major for 2 full years. So I do not recommend that you try and apply for something easier to then switch into something more difficult, because the schools they've established a lot of rules to stop you from doing that. Not every school, oh, two questions at the end, sorry. Not every school admits by major, but some of them do. Check that. And I'm not going to give a list now because there are 9 campuses and a lot of majors. Also keep in mind that many of the universities admit by school. So at UCLA, there's the UCLA College of Arts and Sciences, and then there's the UCLA, I don't remember the name, College of Engineering, and then there's the UCLA, I should have picked a different one, College of the Arts. Or at Berkeley, there's the Haas School of Business that you can apply directly to. There's the engineering school that you can apply directly to. There's the College of Arts and Sciences. There's the College of Creative Studies. All of them do admit by, they all admit by school at the university, even if they don't admit by major at the university. So that is something to keep in mind. And transferring between those is also not always easy. So be careful if you're trying to game the system. They planned in advance. And then yeah, some of them have special programs that are made by major. And then UC San Diego, I mentioned we have extra buttons to click. UC San Diego Ren, it has now 8 of them. There's the university, and then there are the various schools within the university, so engineering, arts and sciences, etc. And then there are also 8 residential colleges. They're like Hogwarts houses, and you have to rank which one of those you want. A lot of people think that it's like completely unimportant to look at those, but you should pay attention because in addition to whatever the graduation requirements for your actual school of study at UC San Diego are, each of the residential houses also has its own graduation requirements. So pay special attention to how you're ranking them. A great example is that the Earl Warren School, or the Earl Warren Residential College at UC San Diego is typically a great one for engineering students because the additional graduation requirements at Warren are almost all math and science. So pay attention because you might be an English kid and you might accidentally rank the one with math and science requirements as your top, so be careful. Unless you're also great at math and science, do what you want. On the UC application, you self-report all of your grades. Really, all I want to say here is do it accurately. They will, like, you don't submit your transcripts as part of the application, but they will check at the end. All of your school's classes are pre-uploaded to the UC system, and also this year, the UC system has finally succeeded in properly pulling a lot of your grades using your state ID if you have it. So if you enter your state ID on the application, it doesn't work for everyone every time, but if you enter your state ID on the application, you have a good chance that it'll automatically pull your grades onto the application this year. It's worked like half and half so far for my kids in California this year. But you do also get a chance to report your math and foreign language grades from 7th and 8th grade. For math, if you took Algebra 1 or higher, you can go ahead and add your 7th and 8th grade classes. And for a foreign language, any foreign language you took, you can add it. A quick note for the foreign languages, I don't recommend putting the foreign language from 7th or 8th grade on there if you retook that class in 9th grade. So don't put Spanish 1 for 8th grade if you retook Spanish 1 in 9th grade. It'll look a little weird. And then they pre-designate all of your A through G courses because you're at a California public school, makes your life a lot easier. And so things are already designated in there for what they fall under. You do get to manually add courses if they don't show up. I always say if you don't see a class on there, think for a moment before you manually add it because it's probably not an A through G course, which is probably why it didn't show up there. And on the activity section of the UC system, of the UC application, there's one type of activity that's called other coursework. And that's where you put non-A through G coursework. The UC system explicitly tells you, like, don't add PE, don't add your health classes. And if you don't see it on the course list, it's probably meant to go into other coursework. So like, you don't have religion classes at a public school, but for my kids at Loyola High School, they add their religion courses into the other coursework section. Awards and activities. This is the last of you'll notice that I skipped test scores. The UC system, SAT and ACT scores. The UC system was banned by the California Supreme Court from considering SAT and ACT scores in the admissions process. You will notice there is still a page on the UC application for you to put your SAT or ACT scores. That is not for admissions. That is so that you can skip the English or math placement exam if you get in. It is not for admissions. The admissions team is banned from seeing that page. It doesn't show up on the PDF that they download. but it'll just help you skip a placement test if you get it. AP exams do not fall into that category. The UC system is allowed to look at your AP exam scores as part of the admissions process. Those are self-reported, just like your grades. You don't submit your official AP exam scores from College Board to the UC system in the same way that you don't submit your official transcripts as part of the application process. If you get in, you do submit them for verification. And if you want credit for any AP courses that you took, you submit your official scores to get credit. Now, the last of the quantitative-ish parts of the application is the activities and awards. The UC system's activities section is actually very, very robust. You get to put 20 activities and awards on there, and you get either 250, 350, or 600 characters, depending on the type of activity. So if you put volunteer work, you get 250 characters to describe the organization at which you volunteered, and then 350 characters to describe what you did. The number of characters depends on the type of activity. The most important thing I'll say here is, whenever you're talking about your contribution, avoid giving a generic explanation. If you were treasurer of the club, believe me, we know what the word treasurer means. Please do not use your 350 characters to say, I collected club dues, and I monitored the bank account, and I had the club credit card. Probably have a credit card. But say what you actually did. The activities and awards section is very important. You should talk about your unique and distinct impact. If you were treasurer, tell the UC system about how you're the one who moved club dues from cash to Venmo. Tell the UC system how you're the one who started making the club budget public knowledge for everyone in the club, so they could see what you were spending money on and they could maybe make decisions about how they wanted the club's funds to go. Whatever you did, write it such that the UC system can understand how they couldn't have just swapped you with any trained monkey and had the exact same impact. I promise you did something that the kid sitting next to you wouldn't have done identically. That's what you should share. And if you can, they love to see how you demonstrate leadership in the activity section. Leadership does not mean that you had a title. I've worked with many club presidents who were much more useless than random members of their club. The member of the club who organized all of the team socials, that was leadership. The kid on the track team who decided, oh, we should actually schedule pasta dinners before every big meet so we can all make sure we carbo load so we perform great. That kid had leadership. The kid on the team who organized the phone tree, tell them about whatever you did in the club. And for the younger students, it doesn't matter if you don't have a position. Don't give up on something because you don't have a position. Show maturity and try and have the impact you can have in whatever clubs you're spending your time in. You don't need to change the world. You just need to have some kind of positive impact on your club. And also, real quick, stop starting clubs. All of you, stop starting clubs. All of your schools have enough clubs. I promise you that the 97,000 children who graduated from your high school before you started every club that needs to be started at your school. If you are really starting a club that is groundbreaking, I'm sorry, translators, I sped up. If you are starting a club that is groundbreaking, that's really changing the scene, go for it. But if you can stop and think of 2 or 3 other clubs where what you're trying to do should be an activity that club is doing rather than a new club, stop starting clubs. It's annoying, it's transparent, and it looks like you care more about your resume than you do about the impact, which is a red flag in admissions. We love to see that you cared about impact, not that you were a self-serving grade grubber who cared about nothing other than yourself. Stop starting clubs. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. You are basically at my TED Talk. I can do whatever I want up here. But yeah, and then actually that bottom note is the most annoying thing about the EC activities list. I will just warn you. On the Common App, you can toggle up and down with the activities after you add them. So you can and annoyingly, the order actually does matter. You want to put your most important activities and awards first. There are a lot of questions on should I do the top 2 most important awards and then my top 2 most important activities? What I say is, my advice is break it up by category. So do whatever you're most proud of, whatever category that falls into should be your first category. So if the thing you're most proud of is your biggest volunteer work, put put the volunteer category first, and then do all of your volunteer work, and then all of your awards, and then all of your work. And so that in each category, let it cascade for importance. I don't recommend that you allow pure chaos, but you should cascade in importance. And on the UC app, you can't change it after you add it. So plan it and then put it on there. And generally speaking, plan everything before you put it on there. When you write your PIQs, write them, edit them, and then paste them in. Don't paste them in before they're done. Speaking of the PIQs, the personal insight questions, I will share a bit of news that is often surprising and may actually, I'm not gonna look at Ashley, she may not like that I'm saying this, but the PIQs are one of the last parts of the application. They are one of the parts of the application that are least likely to move the needle unless you're sharing something earth-shattering or groundbreaking. Most of the UCs have made most of their decisions by the time they get to your personal insight questions, because the other factors are mostly decided before they get here. This is direct from the UC office to most of the decisions have been made before they get here. I say most. Your essays do still matter. A great application with trash essays isn't gonna get in. But just because you have great essays doesn't mean you're guaranteed a spot in. It's a combination of them. Your essays are important, but remember, they're not gonna change the entire world unless they're just really, 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 really bad. But they're not gonna change the entire world. That's it. There are 8 topics in there. I like to say that there are 7 because I hate the last one and very few people are special enough to use it. But there are 8 topics. There is no right one, except I think the 8th one is wrong. That's a me thing. The UC admissions officer I spoke to today told me to stop saying it, and I said no. But there is no wrong topic. You pick the 4 that you have a good answer to. You get 350 words for each of them. Do not use pretty purple prose. Do not use the word plethora. None of you know how to use the word myriad. Just deliver the answer. The UC system doesn't actually want a story, they just want an answer. They would like cold scientific writing. They would take bullet points if they could. Just answer the question. On the personal statement for your Common App, yes, you'll write a beautiful flowery story about how you walked through the Angeles National Forest. On the UC system, deliver a lab report. They would love it. And then all the questions are equal. Beyond those 4 questions, so one of those questions is about extenuating circumstances. There are 2 additional sections on the application where you can write. After you give them your academic history, you can also explain something related to your academic history. And then after you write the 4 PIQs, there's another just additional information where if there is something that needs to be explained about your application in general, you can explain that. The additional information section is for use only if absolutely necessary. It's not bonus essay, it is only if absolutely necessary. Also backtracking to the academic section, just because it's so common now for super, super, super ambitious kids to take 1 to 37 college courses while in high school, remember that even if it's dual enrollment, even if it shows up on your high school transcript, you cannot put a college course into your high school coursework. You have to add it separately in the college courses taken while in high school section. Even if you took the college class for one of your graduation requirements or your A through G requirements, you have to put it in the college section. They'll still count it for A through G and everything, but you have to put it in the right section. You can't put college classes in the high school courses section. I already did that. Yeah. Yes. Everyone has heard the horror story of it's so much harder to get in, there are so many more applicants. Part of that is I forgot the word population. Part of that is population growth. And there are more of us than there used to be. Part of it is that y'all got more annoying and everyone applies to all 9 schools just for the sake of sending all 9 applications. Stop doing that. Because some of the advanced competition is actually just, it's an illusion because everyone sends out 30 applications. Don't. Some schools have gotten significantly more competitive by major. If you see that a school has locked, if you see that a major is locked, I guarantee you that major is more difficult to get into and that it's gotten more difficult recently, which is why they locked it. So keep that in mind. And then, it's only 9%. If I had just turned around, I would have seen that for ELC. ELC, it used to mean frequently Davis, Santa Cruz, Riverside. It now means Merced, usually. Couple quick differences for the CSU application. The CSU application opens on October 1st, not August 1st. The same thing applies. Don't open it early. You didn't get lucky. You're doing the wrong one. It doesn't open until October 1st. It's due on the same day, November 30th. There are 23 campuses for the Cal States. There's that 5-point-something mile radius situation. There are no essays for the Cal State application, asterisk. If you get invited to apply to the San Diego State Honors College, there's an essay. It means that San Diego State might be free, so write the essay. But there's an essay that you get invited to apply to that. You send in the application, and it's like, oh, you're special, and then they ask you to apply. There is no activity section on the Cal State application unless you're applying to the SLO. Unless you're applying to SLO, and SLO has an extra button where you go in and you add information about your activities. There's like a little bit of a SLO specific activity section that you add. Again, you self-report your grades and courses. Annoyingly, you have to do it again after doing the UC version. Annoyingly, it's a little bit more complicated on for the CSU app. I don't actually know if the Cal States are automatically pulling grades this year, so that's something I should have figured out before I came here today. The admissions factors are a little bit different, especially because there aren't the activities, there's not the leadership, there aren't the essays. Admissions at the Cal State system is a little bit more by the numbers. It's your coursework in your A through G classes, it's your grades, it's the level of rigor, it's the campus, and it's the major. At the Cal State system, it is much more likely that the school you're applying to will be admitting based on your major. Every year, the Cal States re-release a spreadsheet of which majors are impacted at which campuses. I say this not to terrify you, but to inform you. Many of the campuses have hit a point where if you're applying, we guarantee you your major is impacted. So it's worth checking because not every campus is like that. It is also worth remembering that many of the schools will not allow you to switch into certain impacted majors. Some of them will allow you to switch into certain impacted majors, some of them have locked a couple majors. SLO, for example, doesn't love it when you try and transfer into engineering programs. Many of them are locked now. Oh, the Cal State application, the spreadsheet. It should be available now. Yeah. And if this year's isn't available, you can see last year's, and nothing that was impacted last year has gotten unimpacted this year, I promise you. But I'm like 95% sure it's already available. Because they released it at the same time as they released their common data set. And then, okay, I'm not gonna do a sales pitch, somebody will get mad at me later, but I don't care. Okay, great. I'm gonna skip to the questions now. Okay. Yes, so the personal insight questions are what I mean when I say essays. There are 8 questions that you get to choose 4 to respond to. You have a maximum of 350 words per response. So I want to be super clear, the essays are the least likely to change the decision. They definitely can change the decision, especially if there's something very, very impactful that you're sharing. But they are the last part of the review process, and in most cases, the decision has mostly been made. So groundbreaking information can definitely change the application, but I want to be really honest, and this is directly from the UC. They are the least likely to change the decision. They can. So and again, bad essays can definitely change it. They are just the least likely to change the answer. If it was already a no, it's less likely to change it to a yes. But they're very important if you want to, if the review was probably yes, you need good essays so that the answer stays yes. But if the answer was probably no, your essays are unlikely to change that to yes. So I think, thank you for asking, because that's a better way to put it. You need good essays so that the answer stays yes if it was going to be yes. But if the answer was no, the essays are unlikely to change it to yes, unless you're explaining very, very specific extenuating circumstances that will change the way they review it. If the answer was going to be no, your essays would require them to do a reread with context to change it to yes. The essays alone, and this is the rule, the essays alone cannot change the answer to yes. The essays have to inspire or reread with new context that will then change the answer to yes. Somebody over there had a question that I said no to earlier. You did, yeah.
You talked about majors and locking and it's been decades since I've been taught, but we went in undeclared, and when we got there after a year or two, we kind of figured out what we want to do because we were kind of figuring it out. Is there still the opportunity to do that now?
So you definitely can, and I encourage students who are undecided to apply undecided. I wrote an article called "Undecided Doesn't Mean Uninterested." Undecided is a great way in, but if you apply undecided, you are among the students who didn't apply to certain majors, and so if you apply to Berkeley as undecided, that means you cannot study computer science, because the only people who can study computer science are the ones who apply to computer
But there are
science.
those people who are like, I'm all about computer science.
Yes.
A bunch of kids that are like, I want to go general and
Yeah.
figure out.
Yeah, I think that the undecided major is a great major. It's a great application plan for anyone who is okay with not being in one of those specific departments. And if you're not dying to be in that department, then it's fine.
Is there anything that a freshman or a sophomore student should do, or can they just wait for junior year?
So grades, courses, all the academic preparation, showing the leadership, leaning into the things that you really care about. Like the activity section makes a huge deal on the UC application. Think about the activities that really matter to you. And again, college applications are not job applications. They are not just admitting the most qualified applicants. They're admitting the students who are most likely to take advantage of the resources available. So no, please stop choosing your children's major when they're 4. Let them explore, let them try things, because the UC system would love to see and hear about how I tried this because I thought I would like engineering, and then I realized I hated it, so I tried this, and then I realized I hated it, but then I tried this, and then I loved it, and that's a great story to put on the application. So freshmen and sophomores should explore, they should try and find the thing they love, they shouldn't panic if it takes them a little while, because telling that story is great. And then, when they find the things that they want to do, let them lean into them. Again, they don't have to be queen of the campus to be a leader. They just have to try and help. They have to try and make a difference.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. One, is there 2 common apps? Is there like a state common app and a UC common app? Or is there one common app?
You mean for the Cal States and the UCs?
Yeah.
There's one application for all the UCs, one application for all the Cal States, and then there's the Common App, which is a separate thing.
So what do they, so you said there's the common app, which is a separate thing.
Yeah, the Common App is about 90-ish% of the colleges that a student would apply to outside of the UCs and Cal States are on the Common App. So Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Dartmouth, UT Austin, University of Washington, University of Oregon, those are all on the Common App.
So the common app is like for the whole country, and then there's a UC, and then there's a state.
And then Cal State, yeah.
Okay, and then if you have to do FAFSA and have show money to, or know how it's going to financially be able to be handled, but FAFSA doesn't come till New Year's, right?
It's supposed to, last year was a disaster. It's supposed to be available on October 1st. It will not be. It'll be available in December this year. Theoretically, the Department of Education doesn't hate us anymore, so it'll be available on December 1st. We'll find out. But you'll submit your applications before you submit your FAFSA. But the deadline for FAFSA is not until May, June, so you have time.
So if you did, to just tag on to the question, so if you did early decision and you didn't have the finances because your FAFSA didn't give you enough money, how do you go about handling that?
So I recommend checking to see if if the school that you're doing ED to accepts the CSS profile. And then if you typically you would check with the financial aid department at the school to understand what the likelihood is. But that's a long conversation that I'm sorry doesn't apply at all to the UCs or Cal State, so I'm gonna evade the question today.
Okay.
So you got another question? Sorry. Oh, that's the UC system has its own application, that's the UC application. The Cal State system has its own application, that's the Cal State application. And then the Common App it's another College Board property because they own everything, right? It's College Board, yeah. Yeah. And College-wise, my company is the official partner of the Common App, so we write their official guide. The Common App basically owns college admissions outside of the UC and the Cal State, and also Apply Texas. Yeah, so transfer is definitely possible. The UC system actually has a commitment to accept twice as many transfer students as it does freshmen. That's not each campus doing that, that's the system overall. And transferring in is hyper competitive. And so lots of students do it. It's a great pathway for a lot of kids. Just keep in mind that it can be extra difficult, especially for certain departments, especially if you are interested in some of the departments that are locked, because those get even more competitive. So like transferring into computer science at Berkeley or at UC San Diego is actually harder than trying to get in as a freshman. Oh, and you can only transfer at junior level to the UC system. There's only one transfer timeline at the UC system.
So the UC only takes into consideration 10th and 11th grades or GPA?
Yes, asterisk. The asterisk is that Berkeley thinks she's special, and so Berkeley does, they all see your freshman year grades, and Berkeley pays a lot more attention to them than the other schools do, but your official UC GPA is only 10th and 11th. And UCLA also will look at your freshman grades.
I heard you could submit your senior grade in your quarter.
The UC system actually they don't see your senior year grades at all during the application process. When you fill in your senior year courses on the academic history section, all of your courses will be either labeled in progress or planned. Many of them will be labeled in progress and planned because you put first semester's in progress, second semester's planned. But the UC system doesn't get any senior year grades during the application process. They only get them if you get in and you decide that's where you want to go. Then you have to submit your transcripts to prove, like, look, I graduated, I didn't fail everything. Oh, okay. I love that question, and the answer is super annoying. It's a trickle-down effect.
Can you repeat the question? Yeah, what was
if you get waitlisted, what's the general timeline for a response? And the timeline for response trickles down from Berkeley and UCLA through Merced. Berkeley and UCLA start to bring students in from the waitlist around the end of May and through June. Berkeley and UCLA typically close their waitlists in mid-ish June. And then what happens is kids who got waitlisted at Berkeley and UCLA might get in from the waitlist, and they might cancel their acceptance at UC Riverside or UC Davis. And this is not a comment on the value of the schools, this is just the way selectivity works and the way people think about them. But so all of the UCs start to bring students in from the waitlist in at the end of May and the beginning of June. Berkeley and UCLA typically finish in June and they close their waitlist and they're done. And then there's a little bit of clearing where kids who said that they were going to go to UC Santa Barbara say, oh, never mind, I got off the waitlist at UCLA, so they cancel their spot at UC Santa Barbara, so then UC Santa Barbara has more spots to fill. And then eventually Santa Barbara and San Diego are the next ones who close, and then the kids at, and then Irvine and the rest of them do it, but it runs up through typically mid-ish July. But if you haven't heard back by mid-June, typically LA and Berkeley have closed, and then it starts to cascade down. So they don't all finish at the same time. And it's just a waiting process. There was somebody whose question yes. Sorry.
So I know the trend I hear lately is a lot of students who don't get into the college of their choice are going to community colleges for 2 years. Can I get your thoughts of that, and then going into and trying to get into the college of their choice? Is that?
So that's similar to the question earlier. That is a very valid path for a lot of students. I always just say be careful because you're still not guaranteed a spot at the school of your choice after those 2 years. And so I typically say and this isn't my decision to make because there are finances involved and it's every family's choice, but what I normally tell students is if you want to transfer, you should start at a school that you would be comfortable staying at for all 4 years because there's no guarantee that you get your transfer. And so I recommend starting at a school, if you have the ability to, if the choice is yours to make, start at a school that you would be okay staying at in case you don't get the transfer you were hoping for. And I realize that that's not the reality for everyone, but the community college CUC system pathway it's an amazing pathway, and California actually leads the nation in making that available. So it's a great option. I just say, don't bank on, I didn't get into Berkeley or UCLA, so I'll go to a community college and then I'll get in, because you're still not guaranteed a spot at UCLA or Berkeley. I think Ashley's gonna cut me off, but I'm gonna answer that question while she walks up here.
You mentioned frequently that computer science is usually locked. What are like the top 5 or 6 ones that tend to be locked?
Computer science and all things engineering. And all things engineering. Yeah, it's typically those, and then at the schools that have business is likely to be locked. And informatics and all of the informatics and data science and all of the things that are just computer science pronounced in a different language, those tend to be locked in. I'm gonna back away from the microphone, I'm so sorry.
Yes, if Christopher would allow me just to continue with answering that question. My name is Ashley Park. I'm one of the counselors at GUSD, but I've also worked with UC Berkeley admissions, UC San Diego admissions, and UC Santa Barbara admissions for the last 8 years. I will say, when it comes to looking at the UC GPA in context to the 9th through 12th grade classes taken and the overall trajectory of the students' course performance, everything is looked at. As an admissions evaluator, every page of that 11 PDF file is looked at from start to finish. So I want to just point out to that student, yes, the 10th and 11th grade GPA is one of the factors of the 13, right, that Christopher mentioned, but I assure you, every single class that a student took that's A through G approved, 9 through 12 is looked at and considered. Sorry, can you remind me the question this parent that just made?
Oh, it was, what are the other things computer science with majors?
Yes, so I will say as an admissions evaluator, we are looking at specific overlays for specific majors. Of those Christopher mentioned, yes, engineering, mathematics, chemistry, those are specific majors, for UC Berkeley, for example. If we get an application and the student has clearly noted that major, there are additional overlays that we have to take into consideration when we are recommending the student for for admissions. So, yes, over the past 8 years, I've seen that admissions has become quite more challenging, right? And things are evolving. And we're hearing from the National Association of College Admissions Counseling that this is the slowest change we're ever going to see, right? It's constantly going to change and at a faster pace. So I encourage you to please be on the lookout for these additional resources that we're pushing from the district. Next month, we have an amazing opportunity for parents and students to come. And if you liked this kind of hot topic seminar session that we provided today, at the college fair, we will have 9 different hot topics related to college and career. We have one on college essays, we have another one on seeking special accommodations in higher ed for academically challenged students. We have careers in biotechnology and STEM as a hot topic. We also have a roadmap to becoming a doctor, pharmacist, nursing as another hot topic. So as you scan the QR code on that flyer, you're registering to receive more information, not only to the fair, but also the hot topic seminars that will run simultaneously to the fair. It will be here Both of the gyms will be occupied by over 100 colleges and career industries. And then in separate breakout room locations, we will have those seminars. Okay, we're honored to partner with the Western Association for College Admissions Counseling this year to provide a more diverse representation of colleges and careers for our families. So please come out and seek those opportunities. Another information item that I wanted to bring to the table is for the last 2 years, Glendale Unified has been working really, really hard to partner with CCGI, California College Guidance Initiative. They are the legislation-backed California State College and Career Planning Tool, CCGI. All the counselors in the district, secondary, middle, and high, we are working very hard to roll this out this year. So the reason why I mentioned this is because it's very timely. Can you raise your hand if you have, if you're a senior or if you have a senior student? Yes. You heard Christopher mention how the academic section, right, of the UC application, of the CSU application, it requires a lot of work on the student's part to find each academic discipline and the exact course title, right, one by one. And up till class of 2024 that just graduated, they had to do that one by one. They had to click on math and look for the right math class that they took per year. With this partnership that GUSD has created with CCGI, all of that has been done. It's finished. So what that means is, if you're a GUSD student and you go to californiacolleges.edu, and I don't have a slide for it because the counselors are really working hard to push this information out to students and families at the school site. If you're a GUSD student and you go to californiacolleges.edu, in upper right-hand corner, you click on register. When you click on register, it's gonna ask you, what's your GUSD ID, the short one. You put in your ID, and you put in your username and your password that you use for GUSD. It's gonna automatically activate your account. As a partner district, we've already sent them our students' information, basic information, right? So once you activate that account, one of the tabs is colleges, and you scroll to launch my UC app, launch my CSU app. When you do that, it will lead you to the main website of the UC, of the CSU, and you create your account, you go in, you basically put in your profile about you, your name, your ID, right? After you do that, when you go to the academic section, it says, do you authorize, your district is a partner district, do you authorize CCGI to release, import all your classes and grades? It's a simple check mark. After you do that, in 2 seconds, all your classes, all the A through G classes that you took at GUSD magically appear in the right category. And we've been really working hard to make sure that our match rate, when I say our match rate, our courses, how we have reported to the UC Office of the President, the A through G course list, that it is matching at less than 20% mismatch rate. And we're continuing to work on that. So you're going to notice, if you're a senior this year, you're going to spend less than, I promise you, 5 seconds on that academic section. If you happen to see a course, like a dual enrollment course appearing in the yellow, right, other course taken, you simply move it to the right area. So that's way less time our students are using, right, than entering one by one and trying to figure out the right category, right, area of discipline. I worked on this with my very own nephew over the weekend, and I just stood in awe as all the classes magically appeared in 2 seconds. So we're really excited, the entire counseling team is excited. If you're joining us from an out of district, in a neighboring district, I encourage you to mention to your counselors on how your school can be a partner district with CCGI. Okay? I can stick around. I found a babysitter for my little one tonight. I can stick around, but thank you, Christopher. Do we have another question? Oh, sorry. Right, I don't have the company stats, but I think it really varies, right? In the past, I've seen, even middle school families reach out to companies like CollegeWise just so that they feel like they're on the right trajectory and they have that extra level of support when it comes to, enrolling in the right classes or what kind of resources are there in the local community when it comes to extracurriculars, right? Summer planning is big, right? Parents are busy, counselors do not work in the summer, right? So I think it really varies, right, with the family and what they're looking for. Question?
Do you know how competitive political science is?
I'm gonna say, and a lot of colleges say this, it depends. It depends on the campus you're looking at, right? And if it's in-state or out-of-state. I will say a lot of out-of-state colleges are really looking to accept more California students. So if I may encourage you, please, if you haven't checked out Colleges That Change Lives, CTCL, they're an organization, they're a nationally acclaimed organization with about 45 colleges across the nation that have received a lot of recognition for doing wonderful work with undergraduate. So when you look at UCs and CSUs, they offer undergraduate but also graduate programs, right? I went to UCLA, 24 years ago, but most of my classes at UCLA was taught by one main professor, right? And we went to class, I think, once a week. And an additional 2 times per week, we went to a lab section or discussion section, which was led by the graduate students, right? The organization that I'm talking to you about, CTCL, Colleges That Change Lives, these are undergraduate-focused campus institutions across the nation where every single class is taught by their full-time professor. And so you'll see names like Kalamazoo College, right? And many, many others, right? There's about 45 of them. But I encourage you to look at their website, it's ctcl.org. And also this was created by a really famous educator named Lauren Pope. Yes, question?
Do you have a place where we can find summer opportunities? I'm having a very hard time. I've asked our counselors, I've asked our college counselor, and honestly, they're really not helpful at all in trying to guide us in what would be a great thing for the students to do over the summer. Do you have any resources? Like if you want to be an engineering major, do the following things. If you want to be an attorney, do the following things. Do you have anything like that that you can share with GUSD students?
I encourage you to start with the GUSD.net under College and Career Division. We do list a lot of scholarship opportunities, a lot of local internship and apprenticeship opportunities, and I'm sorry to hear that you didn't find the right resources at the school site through the counseling department, but as far as I know, each counseling department at the high school level, they keep a spreadsheet of local organizations and also schools and universities that offer summer enrichment programs. So I encourage you to just seek out the counseling department just one more time for that resource. And they go back frequently to update that spreadsheet. So number 1, start with GUSD.net under College and Career Division. And then number 2, please reach out to the school site counseling department for that spreadsheet, the resource, the list of local organizations and campuses that offer summer enrichment.
Great, thank you.
I was on a Zoom 2 nights ago with this other college thing, and they were talking about scholarships and loans and grants. I'm a senior, and I'm really interested in this. But they said it was important to also look at the college's track record of grants and support and stuff. And they were selling something, it's like $350 to get their degrees. But what I'm
us the students in the past? No, we have not kept that data.
We have something like this that I can access.
Right. A resource that Christopher mentioned that a lot of counselors look at is the common data set. Common data set. If you can Google that, that is refined every year, right, from the colleges, and it gives you the main stats that you need, right? Not only with the admissions, but what you're talking about, right? It is very important. It's so expensive to go to college now, right? And so, you know, free all the way, right? I preach that to my nephew. But completing the FAFSA is very important, number one, even if you feel like you're a middle-income family and you're not going to get $1. Colleges use that information to see, hey, what other institutional aid or outside of, you know, what the federal government can provide, what else can we support with the student, right, to make and, you know, meet with when it comes to tuition. The CSS profile that Christopher mentioned, that's also going to be very important because that specifically is linked to institutional aid that colleges are able to provide the families. So there are a specific number of colleges, I think it's about 250 colleges and upwards that require the CSS profile in addition to completing a FAFSA. And they happen to be mostly the private colleges because they want to assess, along with the FAFSA information, where the family really stands when it comes to their finances. So if there is extra, you know, pockets, budgets, right, and within their institution that they can provide the student, they will come up with that estimate and provide it, especially more so if you're applying early decision or early action, and they're giving you that package way earlier than a typical UC or CSU would.
Where do we ask? I'm in charge of finance. So,
Oh.
where and when do I know the FAFSA is coming in December?
FAFSA is coming in December. CSS profile is linked with College Board. So if you type, if you Google CSS profile, it's going to lead you to the page that's under College Board.
And that's open now. Do we fill that out now? When do we fill that out?
It's recommended that you start filling that out end of October-ish.
Is that also based on 2023 taxes?
Correct. No, 2020, they look at everything. As far as I know, because FAFSA is prior year, right? So this graduating class, since you're going to start college 2025, right, it's 2023 taxes. To my memory, with the CSS profile, they're asking you above and beyond 2023. So, sorry, that's an application that I'm going to have to look at again, but I'm sure that they ask above and beyond what's required strictly on the 2023 tax information. You're welcome. And yes?
I had a question about, it seems like a lot of high school has that CTE pathways or continuing education. And how important it is for them to finish? You know, sometimes they might start something and they're like, it's not for me. Or they start later, you know, in the junior year and they don't have enough time to complete that pathway. Is that something we need to start thinking about, like,
I don't know if Christopher mentioned this, but when colleges are looking at the extracurricular section and courses that are above and beyond the A through G's, right, like CTE, career technical education classes, they're looking at the consistency and the duration also. So they want to see if the student was committed and they finished it through, right, the highest level. If for some reason they were unable to, I think that's additional information that the student should provide on the application to give the evaluator context. Always context, right? But I think anything is better than nothing. If my niece, who's now in 8th grade, asks me, oh, I'm kind of interested in cinematography, should I try that? But I'm not committed. I don't want to go all the way. As an aunt, I would say, yes, try it, right? Better to try it and change tracks than to not try it at all, wait till 10th grade and try to start a CTE pathway. I don't know if that's helpful, but...
Yeah, it seems like a lot of, right now my daughter's taking photography. And she opted for photography because that takes 3 years to complete. And they only offered it starting in 10th grade. So she had to start now in order to finish. But honestly, I'm not sure if she would like it, but then she feels like, well, I have to do it to finish, to get it beautiful. But you can only choose some of the lessons. So I'm just wondering, like, how does all that come into play? Like, and also there's availability. You may not be able to get to that course, and time-wise, you're not going to. You just
Right,
not
due
gonna
to
do it.
scheduling conflicts and other commitments.
And especially since it seems like colleges, seems like it's a good idea to know what you want to do by the time you apply to college, right? Because you can choose the major. And if you don't dabble in high school, and you can't dabble in college, like how does that all work? Because I do remember, like, way back, you don't really declare anything until you get to your GP courses, like in college level.
Right, and I think the majority of teenagers, right, whether that was 20 years ago or now, they don't quite know where their skill sets lie. Yes, they may express interest in one area, but you know, that keeps changing. I think what the colleges are trying to assess in the end is, does this student have a love of learning, right? Are they curious? Do they want to go above and beyond? And are they dedicated? And are they committed? And so those are the 5 character traits that I keep trying to mention to my own niece and nephew. It doesn't really matter if you have X number of AP classes and you're trying to flush that out because a school like CV offers way more than 20. What we need to focus on is, do you recognize what you're naturally good at? Right? But also in line with what you love to do, like what makes your eyes light up and you want to get up in the morning. And are you also mindful of what the world needs right now? And in 5 years, 10 years, what the world is going to need, right? And then in line with those 3 factors, can you make a living? Can you really bring food to the table as head of the household, right? Or, with 2, 3 children in the next 15 years as you're an adult, if you want to pursue this track. Like, I really am a fan of that Ikigai concept. Have you guys heard of Ikigai? I learned it a couple years ago. I wish I learned this when I was starting out in counseling at 25. I'm now 41, and I'm like, well, how did I not know this? But it's an Ikigai concept, meaning a person achieves a full success, right, in life when these 4 components coincide. And it's number 1, do you recognize what you love to do? Number 2 is, do you know what you're naturally good at, inclined to be a little better at, what comes easier to you than others, right? Because what you love to do may be very different than what you're really good at, right? When I was in high school, I loved tap dancing. I wasn't good at it at all. And so, those 2 big, pieces of the puzzle. And then the other 2 were, what does the world need right now? Do you have some civic engagement? Do you have a heart to really, give back to the greater good? And are you recognizing what is missing in the world, right? And then the 4th is, can you actually make a living? Can you bring an income home? And I really encourage all parents to kind of flip the conversation around when we're talking about college admissions and these staggering statistics. If we can just hone in on these 4 areas of the Ikigai concept and encourage our students to really foster that love of learning and the curiosity and the civic engagement so that their eyes light up right in the morning, like ready to do something, rather than, hey, did you finish your PIQ? Right? Did you finish your UC apps? You gotta apply by November 15th, We don't wanna head into Thanksgiving break with those apps looming over. I think what gets challenging is when every dinner conversation, right, or over breakfast or lunch is, hey, have you seen those stats? Like, what are you gonna do with your life? And so I, personally too, I'm trying to steer away from those types of conversations with my nephew. But yeah, if you haven't heard about the Ikigai concept, I highly encourage you to Google it. Yes?
This kind of piggybacks on a question I was asked earlier about teenagers and that kind of stuff, but
with any major that's currently existing and any career that currently exists, we need to coach our students into thinking that with any major or any career or major that you want to pursue, you got to, at the surface, at the core of it, be able to learn the AI that's going to empower that field. And so I don't think, a lot of the humanities will be wiped out completely. I think we're going to figure out a way, higher ed and also, K through 12, in continuing these passions, right, and the creativity within humanities, but also using the AI technology that is, fast developing. And so for our students to be able to manage that along with their passions in humanities or, their curiosities, I think that's the blend that we need to encourage our students. Yeah, I'm a fan of gap year.
Now, here's another question. He doesn't talk about it, and I don't think school talks about it. I know we're short on time, but I was a foreign exchange student after a senior. Are there programs now that USD is partnered with that my son could go study a year abroad? He hasn't said anything from his counselor, and I get it, and I've always encouraged it.
That's a really good question. And I think if we do have any, it will be a part of the College and Career Division. So I will check with that department to see if we have any study abroad opportunities.
I'd like to present that to him as well as an option.
Great.
It exists, but I don't want to just go ahead and move on.
Yes. We'll take one last question.
Do you work for the district? I'm trying to understand what your position is and how you would work with the staff or like the parents. Like where do you work and how do you get in touch with you? This is the most information I've gotten than anything else from our school.
This is a special position that was created 2 years ago by GUSD. I am a district counselor on special assignment. So what I've been doing is I've been supporting our secondary counselors across the district, middle and high school, in all 3 domains of school counseling. So not only college and career, although my passion is in that domain, but as school counselors, we serve 3 domains, right, of counseling: academic achievement, personal social development, and college and career readiness. So I've been supporting our middle and high school counselors across the district in all 3 domains. And one of the main initiatives that Dr. Coulter has really been a big support in is launching the CCGI. When I came on, I felt like that would be a really great resource for our GUSD students. So yeah, it's finally coming to fruition, and your students will be using it at their school sites this year.
Thank you.
Thank you. And my contact email is apark, A-P-A-R-K, @GUSD.net, Ashley Park. So if you have any additional questions, feel free to email me. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming tonight.